Really awesome to be spending some more time with you today to talk about some really important information regarding assignments, but also this idea of instructional design. Today, we're going to focus on the idea of a context analysis. And so up to this point, so let's connect some dots. Up to this point, we've talked about a needs analysis, which is this kind of data gathering process that we might go through to gain information about the specific gap that's occurring. So what's the desired state, what's the current state, and what's the gap in between that? What exactly are we going to be filling? We really focus on filling that gap with deficiency in knowledge or skills or ability in some way, or attitude, in some way. And so we want to fill that gap with some instruction related to developing knowledge, developing skill, or influencing someone's attitude. Last time we talked about the learner analysis and the need to really kind of understand who our audience is going to be and who those learners might be. So today's focus is going to be on the context analysis. And I have some really specific and important information to give you regarding the context analysis as it relates to the assignments for our class. One of the best ways I think we can think about what a context analysis might be is where will the training take place and where will the new skills that someone learns be implemented. Now think about the idea of football for a minute. So it's football season here in the States. Everybody's really excited about it. The University of Louisville is doing really well in the national rankings. Our football team is outstanding. So think about football for a minute. Where does someone actually learn football? I mean, where does the training for football happen, right? Well, oftentimes it happens on a practice field. But do football players practice on a baseball field and then play on a football field? Or do they practice on a soccer field and then go play on a football field? No, that would be silly, wouldn't it? It would be silly to practice football on a baseball field because football is played on a football field, right? Now that seems really obvious. It also seems kind of, what's this guy talking about? How many times have you been to instructional events where you've had to learn a new skill or some new knowledge or a new attitude in some way? And the place where you learned it looked nothing like the place where you were actually going to be implementing the knowledge or skill. Happens all the time. It happens all the time in organizations. But it would seem ridiculous to practice football at the mall or on a baseball field or just out someplace, right? No. We would want to practice on a football field. And the same holds true here. We want to be able to implement our training that focuses on knowledge, skill, or attitude in a similar kind of environment that our learners are actually going to be implementing that. And that helps with what we call training transfer. So let's move this idea forward a little bit. A context analysis does two things. It focuses on where new skills will be executed after the training, as well as where you will give your training. So that has two pieces to it. Part A is where will the skills be implemented or executed after the training. And Part B considers where are you actually going to give your instruction. What's the environment like for you, right? So again, similar to the learner analysis that we had last week, let's think about your own design projects for a minute. Exactly what would you want to know about the context of where the skills, attitudes, or behaviors you're going to be teaching are going to be implemented? Where will that actually occur? Where will you actually do your training? And where will the skills actually be implemented? And is there any differences between those two areas? And if so, what are they, right? Similar to the learner analysis, there's no single best way to determine exactly what we need to know. Again, it kind of lies in your court of saying, well, what is it the information that I need to be able to produce the best intervention possible? One of my favorite examples of this is I saw an organization invest significantly in some technology training. And they set up a brand new computer lab. It was beautiful. It was all full of brand new Apple computers. And the room was just really slick looking. It had windows to the outside. It was very beautiful. And so they had these brand new Mac computers everybody was kind of learning this new skill on, right? And they went through a week's worth of training. And so it was very expensive to implement and Took people off the line for a significant period of time, but they learned all this stuff on Apple computers. When they went back to their desk, they had old Windows-based machines. Well, how well do you think that training transferred? Not very well. If you've ever used a Mac or and then gone to use a Windows machine, or if you've ever used a Windows machine and you tried to come over to Mac, it's confusing. Well, the buttons aren't in the same places. The hard drives aren't on the... You can't access stuff in the same way, right? It just looks a little different. And so there was this huge training intervention that actually didn't do all that great because the context of the training and where the skills were going to be implemented wasn't something anybody considered. So let's move this idea forward. So there are some performance characteristics that we need to think about, right? What is the technology and technology support that's going to be both needed and utilized, right? So is there some technology or some technology support that we need to think through here? What is the managerial or supervisor support for this? Does the manager support the training? Do you anticipate leaders within the organization or people of influence within the organization being supportive or non-supportive? And we don't have to go very far to understand why we might want to know that. Training that is not supported by managers or people of influence within the organization, that doesn't transfer very well, right? What are the physical aspects of the site? So are there tables and chairs? Are there projector screens that we need? Are there laptops? Are there pencils and paper? Are there tablets? Are there markers? What kinds of things do we need, right? Structurally speaking, is it cold? Is it hot? Are there windows? Are there not windows? Those are all things that we might want to consider. And then what are the social aspects of the site? What do I mean by social aspects? Well, how does the room really feel, right? How does the training environment feel? How does the performance environment feel? Does the team work well together? Again, is there conflict like we talked about last week? Are there issues that we need to consider? Are there social aspects of the site that might not only enhance training but also challenge it and constrain training in some kind of way? And then what's the relevance and applicability of the skills, the knowledge, or the attitude to the workplace? So are they learning new skills that's directly related to their job? Are they getting new knowledge that they can go back to their desk and implement? Are they learning a new way to view the company mission or vision, or learning new company values in ways that will really be relevant to the workplace? Again, we go back to that Shuckism. Does your instruction solve a problem? Can your instruction raise some status? Or can your instruction provide some kind of development? The answer to those questions can determine the barometer of motivation for your learners. The more relevant something is, and we know this, the more relevant and more applicable something is, the more likely that skill is to be transferred over into the workplace. The idea of a context analysis is really getting into how do we increase and leverage the transfer of training. What are the physical aspects of the site, the social aspects, the technology aspects, the support aspects, right, of the site, that both for where my training is going to be implemented and where those skills are going to be executed. Remember, there are two pieces to this particular puzzle. So if we move this idea forward, so how do we actually get what we need? And there's a couple of things. So I'm talking now specifically about the assignment that is due connected with the context analysis. So where do you get this kind of information, right? Well, sometimes you get it from observations. You actually go and look, right? Well, this is the training location. This is what it looks like. I never, ever give a workshop without first going to see the location and testing the technology. Trust me, I've had PowerPoints fail on me way too many times. I've had computers not be compatible. I've had the room be too cold. I've had the room be too dark. I've had no room at all, right? There'd be no chairs, no tables, no anything until I got there to see what was going on. So I never do a workshop without first going to inspect or see, right, for myself, what is it that we have to work with. Now, I'm not very picky. I'm able to kind of modify a room or make something work on the fly. It's not a big deal, but it's not about that. It's about being prepared, right? Sometimes I'll do a dry run-through, but you want to go observe the office or the appropriate setting. And I would encourage you to observe both places. Where's the training going to take place? And where will the new skill be implemented, right? And are those two things different? Remember, Football players don't practice football on baseball fields. They practice them on football fields, and we want those environments to be as congruent as possible. The second thing is we might do some interviews. We might get some situation and context-specific information that really is unique to the nature of learning that's going to happen. Now, this gets into the idea of the audience, again, and that connects back with our learner analysis, but sometimes there's information that we might need to know about the context that is important that we would only get through interviews, right? So maybe not only why are those people here, but is there some kind of a situation? Are they here for training for a specific reason, right? Can we know more about why they might come to this, right? At the end of the day, this results in a useful document. So I want to, again, stress that, and we'll carry that frame of reference over from our learner analysis that we talked about last week. But at the end of the day, it results in a useful document. It's a description of the physical and organizational environment where the skills will be utilized, where the skills will be executed after your training, right? And it's a list of any special features that may facilitate or intervene or interview with the learner's use of new skills, right? So we have this, we have two sides of the coin here. We have the physical organization or the physical environment where the skills will actually be implemented, and then any special features of the environment that we need for our training purposes. And again, I would implore you to think about the idea of where football teams practice, right? And how we try to create an environment that is very similar. Getting to know that context, getting to know where your training will take place, getting to know where those skills, knowledge, and attitudes will actually be executed will help you have a much better and clearer picture of how you will approach training different knowledge, skills, and attitudes. As always, it's a pleasure to spend time with you. Talk to you next time.